news circulating in the social media is fueling the farmers' herders crisis in Nigeria. Gory pictures from other lands are circulated freely via Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter, purportedly being from the killings in Jos.
Nigeria and the Republic of South Africa have resolved to chart a pragmatic course towards developing and deepening their relations in critical economic sector for the benefits of the two countries. To this end, the bi-national commission between the two largest economies on the continent is to be revitalized and reinvigorated to act beyond rhetorics to enhance mutual beneficial agreements.
That we are now opening a new page in the relationship between South Africa and Nigeria, and this new page gives us the opportunity to go beyond where we've been before and find a number of areas where we can reach agreement, and in this regard make sure that the benefit that should accrue to our people is actually bountiful. We are at the right place at the right time to extend the relationship between Nigeria and South Africa to a higher level.
The African Union over the years adopted various regulatory instruments against corruption, culminating into making Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari lead the vanguard against the menace on the continent. This is because corruption has remained a clog in the wheels of progress in Africa and in general. As well as Africa marked a day of anti-corruption, the Nigerian Senate said that the fight against corruption must be collaborative and a continuous process.
To ensure and sustain the level of commitment for combating corruption, the Assembly of African Union in 2017 declared the 2018 the African Anti-Corruption Year.
And we'll continue to pass legislations in this parliament that will support the fight against corruption. And I'm happy to announce that the NFIU bill has now been signed into law.
And finally, the House of Representatives has applauded the anti-corruption drive of the Buhari administration. However, some of the legislators called for the modification of existing laws, especially as regards for future of property acquired through corrupt practices, coming under the Executive Order No. 6, recently signed by the President.
The executive order issued by Mr. President, sequel to these 4 sections that I mentioned, is in order and constitutional.
The intendment of presidential executive orders is to enforce the law, and that is what have just been exhibited here.
And that does it on the morning news this morning. A review of the papers and, of course, some business news is up next when Kirian and Kingsley return after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime, we bust syndicates, Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria police force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the daring and invincible Louis the Mosquito. Responsible for 200 malaria cases all on its own. Is there anything that can kill Louis? Morphine! Presenting Mortise Power Guard. Its powerful formula kills malaria mosquitoes fast. So, get Mortise Power Guard.
Kehinde suffers from indigestion. His twin Taiyi suffers from heartburn. Sometimes it's the other way around, or both. That's why they use Gaviscon Double Action. It soothes within 3 minutes and lasts for up to 4 hours. For double relief from heartburn and indigestion, Gaviscon Double Action.
Winning in hot and dry conditions is hard. Causes the body to sweat, which attracts germs that are easily passed from one person to another.
What keeps you so cool, man?
Dettol Cool combines Dettol's protection and an invincible icy feel. For super cool confidence, use Dettol Cool.
Dettol soap is now also available for 100 Naira only.
The Nigerian broadcast sector is evolving. Operators, including cameramen and photographers, require new skills and techniques to churn out world-class productions. A unique opportunity is open to all. NTA TV College Jos is organizing a 4-week intensive short course in camera operation techniques aimed at enhancing the professional skills of cameramen and photographers, practicing and freshers. Date 16th July to 10th August 2018. Another 4-week intensive short course in photojournalism and photography holds 13th August to 7th September 2018. Venue for both courses is the TV College premises, NTA TV College, Rayfield, Jos. Fee 100,000 Naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. For more inquiries, contact us on 0806 980 9807 and 0703 660 7155. TV College, Jos. Training you to be the best you want to be.
Thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, let's go business. The Central Bank of Nigeria has issued an amended regulatory framework for bank verification number, BVN, and watch lists for Nigerian financial system. More on this from Comforter Modu.
Hello and welcome to Good Morning Nigerian Business News. The Central Bank of Nigeria has released an amended regulatory framework for bank verification number, BVN operations, and watch list for Nigerian financial system. The circular signed by the Director Banking and Payment System Department, Mr. Dikpo Fatukun, states that a valid court order is required to have access to a customer's BVN, which is subject to the approval of the CBN. The circular, which takes immediate effect, is one of the prerequisites for deposit money banks, switches, mobile money operators, payment solution providers, microfinance bank and others for the release of BVN information to applicants. Still on CBN, the Apex Bank has again boosted the interbank foreign exchange market with the sum of $210 million to meet customers' demands in various segments of the market. CBN offered $100 million to authorized dealers in the wholesale segment, while the small and medium enterprises segment got the sum of $55 million. And away from that, ahead of the CBN and inflation rate reports to be released on Friday 13th of this month by the National Bureau of Statistics, a trip to one of the markets in the Federal Capital Territory reveals a slight increase in the prices of staple foods. Here is the graphic representation of the Market Watch. Still staying with the market, a quick look at an update from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And that's business news on the hour. Thanks for watching. I'm Comfort Amadou.
Thank you very much, Comfort Amadou, for the business package. Next for us now is a review of the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
All right, let's welcome our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Toyabi. Bayo is here with us this morning. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kyria.
And
good morning, Kingsley.
How did the second semi-finals go yesterday?
Expectedly, yes.
Expectedly?
England qualified for the losers' final.
That's the way you want to put it.
That's right.
All right.
That's pretty hard. The losers' final takes place on Saturday.
Yes.
That's the so-called third-place match.
Exactly.
Yes.
And what actually interests people about what happened yesterday was the fact that Croatia is the smallest country to have gone to the finals in the last 50 years. You know?
Yes, football is not about the smallest. It is about determination and discipline. And Croatia showed it. Determination, discipline, and not losing focus.
And talent.
Exactly.
Talent. I mean, you couldn't be parading one of the best midfielders in the world at this time.
Exactly.
Who is also the skipper of the team, Luka Modric. All right, so Bayo, let's take a look at the front pages of today's newspapers. There's a story that is common to the front pages of all the papers, either by way of photograph or otherwise by way of just the headlines. For the Punch newspaper is the lead story. It says, drama as Fayose weeps, claims he was beaten by policemen. The writer is, of course, it's comedy of the year, says APC. You can see the photographs of the governor after he was allegedly beaten yesterday, according to him, by the police. As I indicated, that's also the story for the New Telegraph. It comes as a photograph, and then, of course, with a caption. The kicker for the New Telegraph photograph and story is Ekiti governorship poll. Policemen slapped and tear-gassed me. That's according to Fayose, and he's there. And then you come to this day newspaper. Is the second lead story, just below the lead story, and it says immunity. That's for this day now. The kicker is immunity tear-gassed. Fayose weeps, cries out. And then there is a writer, police, he is play acting.
All right, now let's go to the Tribune. I think he has the same story as the main headline. It says Ekiti boils, Fayose in neck brace, weeps. And then with the four riders to that headline, it says policeman beat me, pushed me. Police used tear gas, dispersed PDP's victory walk rally. We stopped rally to prevent breakdown of law and order, says the police. And then PDP, Jonathan, Atiku, Afenifere, Melaye, and others condemn attack. All right, Kingsley, other major?
Bayo, just before we come to that, let's take other headlines that are also on the front pages. This day newspaper from top to bottom now. This day, LLNG, that's the Nigerian liquefied natural gas, shops for $7 billion to build Train 7. And of course, you have the riders there, repays $5.45 billion US loans used to build 6 trains plus the others. Immortalized Chiroma, Senate tells federal government. And below the nameplate of the paper, RAPC, that's the reformed APC according to them, writes INEC demands annulment of Oshomole and others' election. Details on page 8. Lead story, Buhari pleads for patience as bandits kill 32 in Sokoto, says security team racking its brain on ending violence. Tambowal calls for overhauling of security system, and Khan holds national prayers session.
All right, so the new leadership before Bayo comes in now, it has a different headline this morning, leadership newspapers. Anti-graft war, APC lawmakers stage walkout as reps suspend President Buhari's executive order. Is on page 5 with the two riders. Summon AGF, Law Reform Commission, reject bill seeking to finance Ajakuta with a $322 million Abacha loot. And then below the photograph of the new leadership, we have AQT, Farisha's failure to pay drivers sparks violence. It's on page 34. And then there are other striking stories here. Gunmen KU-32 sack 6 communities in Sokoto State on page 33. Again, customs uncovers large cache of arms. And then we have a Plateau Assembly impeaches Speaker and Majority Leader. It's on page 10 of the leadership. Barry.
Well, the Ekiti story is becoming a huge drama. Governor Ayodele Fayosi says he was slapped and beaten by policemen deployed to disperse gathering at the party supporters at the government house at Ekiti. This day reports that the governor wore a cervical collar and said, "I plead with the international community to intervene and save Ekiti from the siege. I will go back to the hospital after addressing you to receive further treatment." The police on their part said that they dispersed a rally that was not approved at Fajuyi area of Ekiti. The DIG operations, Habila Joshak, says the role of the police is to ensure that political rallies that are not approved are not allowed to hold. He said, you can notice that the state is tensed up. As law enforcement agents, we must be proactive. We take action to prevent crisis rather than wait to quell it after it has broken out. This day reports that armed policemen staged a stage of Ekiti government house and prevented supporters of the governor from reaching there. The police say actually they blocked the road from Fajuyi Park and the state secretariat. The Nation reports it differently, and it says that the police said they did not attack the governor. Rather, the police fired tear gas to disperse the crowd that had been advised not to hold a rally. Another party was also prompted to hold a road show, that is the APC, on the same day, and this was prime for trouble, and that was why they dispersed them. Governor Nyesom Wike has described the alleged attack on Governor Fayosi as unwarranted intimidation ahead of Saturday's election. Meanwhile, Prince Dayo Adeyeye, now of the APC, has described Governor Fayosi's claims as the latest turn from a clownish dramatist. So it's difficult to decipher the truth from acting there, but all that drama is about the election that is coming on Saturday. Exactly. The other worrying story is about 32 persons that were killed in 5 villages in Sokoto. They have since been buried, and President Muhammadu Buhari has appealed to Nigerians to be patient and that security agents will look out for all those who are causing these horrendous attacks and bring them to book. He says no group of barbarians and criminals will be allowed to hold the country hostage and destroying lives without consequences. The Special Assistant to the President, Garba Shehu, says President condemned the killing of 30 people by bandits in Gandhi in Sokoto State. Actually, the 5 villages that were attacked are Tabani, Gidam, Beri, Akuzo, Dankilawa, and Boronga. And the governor was also at the places where the persons who died there were buried.
I mean, this is becoming worrisome. You know, the spate of killings by bandits in different parts of the country. You know, for a long while, Zamfara was in the news on account of the rampaging bandits, you know, who had laid siege to various villages, you know, causing mayhem and indeed fatalities on account of the atrocities that they were perpetrating. Now it is Sokoto, So it looks like in the past, of course, you could look at the Northeast and say the Northeast was the most impacted by Boko Haram.
Insurgency?
Yeah, Boko Haram insurgency. And then the rest of the North Central and the Northwest obviously seem relatively safe, except, of course, for Kano, which at some point was also impacted by the bombing activities of Boko Haram. But suddenly, you're having the shift, you know, to the northwest of the country. And Zamfara, you know, Zamfara has been there, of course, and then Sokoto all of a sudden. Benin, that's right.
Zamfara, Talata Marafa, Sokoto now.
Sokoto has been very peaceful for a very long time.
Something has to be done about
you know,
bandits
I think the shift will be on the fact that, you know, these are borders, you know, there are porous borders across the nation, you know, and that is also contributing immensely to this. Okay, now we have other striking stories here. Let's go to the Nigerian Tribune, and below the nameplate of Nigerian Tribune, we have Galadima writes INEC seeks nullification for Shomole's election. It's on page 29. And reps reject executive order 6 as Senate summons AGF. Page 4 has the details of that story. Now, how Ondo ex-deputy governor's daughter was killed in my room, says the boyfriend. It's on page 31. And now, below the photograph of the Nigerian Tribune, we have a court jails 113 Boko Haram members, sentences Kabiru Mohammed to 30 years imprisonment. It's on page 3. Then, Adon show certificate saga. We have nothing to add to what NYSC said. That's the federal government. Page 30 is where you can get the story. Now, many killed, 32 buried as bandits attack Sokoto villages. Page 36 is where you get the story on the Tribune.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch also has some of the stories that Kirian you've just read. Above the nameplate, again, the president saying, my security team racket their brains to end killings. That's on page 13. And on page 10, suspected herdsmen kill 42, sack 12 Taraba villages. And then you come to the first column on the right-hand side. Of course, the earpiece that you have there is a pull-out from the Punch special edition on sports. So it's Croatian Masters tutors, England young stars. That's there. That's what you can see that. And then you come to there are other headlines beside the Fayoshe photograph you have on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Army should dismiss indicted officers in Plateau killings. That's according to former head of state General Yakubu Gawan, page 42. South Africans attacking Nigerians are criminals, says Ramaphosa. So Ramaphosa is South African president. That's on page 11. And then there's a story there on the NYC exemption certificate saga involving the Minister of Finance. Very quickly, let me take a look also at the New Telegraph. New Telegraph, again, the other stories on the lead is on 2019. RAPC goes after Oshomole, petitions INEC. Galadima, that's Galadima of RAPC. APC chair 17 officials election invalid, unlawful. Labour Party, ADP pull out of coalition against Buhari. And security agents ground Kaduna over El Zakzaki. Banks, schools and shops shut. And case adjourned till August 2nd. Lastly, curry powder slows cancer growth. Details on page 7. Before you start consuming curry in abnormal quantity, better read the story and read the follow-up.
Properly. All right, you want to comment on some of the
yes,
editorial?
The National Assembly is inviting the Attorney General of the Federation to answer some questions about the executive orders. Executive orders are part of the prerogative of presidential systems of government. You recall in the United States, President Donald Trump signed several executive orders.
He actually started with it.
On his inauguration. However, executive orders are not laws. They are challengeable in court. And some of those signed by President Trump have been confirmed by some courts. Others have been voided by some courts. So it's part of the politics of a presidential system. Be that as it may, about 113 Boko Haram members have been convicted. You remember there is this special court that is sitting in New Busa. It's held this second session, and about 113 of them were convicted. One of them, known to be very notorious, Muhammad, was sentenced to 30 years in prison for each of the 7 counts of charges that was faced. However, there were 111 others, suspects, who were set free because of insufficient evidence to prove their guilt. There were 3 judges who are from the Federal High Courts who were there, and observers at the trial include Amnesty International, Human Rights Organization, as well as, I think that's, yes, those organizations. It is also the second time that court is convicting people. Now, the World Cup. The 3 Lions of England have qualified for the losers final, and they will be taking on Belgium on Sunday. Meanwhile,
that's not going to be an easy game at all.
Yes, Croatia, having qualified now, will play France in the finals on Saturday.
On Sunday.
Or on Sunday, rather.
On Sunday.
All right, now to the editorial for this morning, taken from the Nigerian Pilot, is on youths and danger of unemployment. Well, last week, a mainstream national newspaper reported scary news that should have gained greater national and international attention or reaction. Now, unfortunately, it was treated as a minor or irrelevant story by many other media organizations. Well, that's actually the story of a young man who, out of frustration, orchestrated by harsh economic reality, unable to continue to cope with life, gave up the struggle and decided to end his own life by setting himself ablaze.
Well,
is it becoming a new trend in Nigeria now?
The editorial is happening on youth unemployment, and it is increasing by the day, and it is not far-fetched. Yeah, in fact, these days, you have 2 batches of members of the National Youth Service Corps passing out yearly, and they are in their thousands, and all of them are heading straight into the unemployment market. This saga has been with us for a long time, and the editorial is now saying that some of a youth who you refer to their committed suicide as a point, and drew a parallel with what happened in Tunisia, where a 26-year-old young man could not get employment. He started selling fruits, but when he was brutalized by police, it led to what he described as Arab Springs, which overthrew the government there. So they are drawing the attention and also lamenting that from National Bureau of Statistics details, it shows that there are more people losing jobs than getting employment. So there is a lot more to be done in creating jobs so that our youths should not be the idle hands for a devil's workshop.
All right. If you recall, yesterday we were talking about the likely closure of the Third Mainland Bridge. I think the date has now been announced. I think it's from the 27th or so of this month up until Sunday.
Midnight?
Friday.
Friday midnight.
Friday 27th.
To Sunday.
Up until Sunday, just for preliminary investigation, just to update that. Bayatebe, thanks a lot for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
See you again tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be dealing with how to effectively manage Nigeria's exploding population.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the daring and invincible Louis the Mosquito. Responsible for 200 malaria cases all on its own. Is there anything that can kill Louis? Morphine! Presenting Mortise Power Guard. Its powerful formula kills malaria mosquitoes fast. So, get Mortise Power Guard.
brought us as usual.
As usual.
Mm.
You have no problem.
For the three put
You are welcome, sir.
as usual, yeah? I was
You take that one.
Yes.
Take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have? You don't have?
Join the rice revolution today.
no other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mobu to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
And how they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The NTA Television College JOS admission forms for diploma program in film and television production, television engineering technology, broadcast journalism, and degree programs in mass communication, television journalism, and mass communication television production is now on sale. The sale of forms will commence 14th May and run to 13th August 2018 at the cost of 7,500 Naira only per form, payable through the remitter platform in favor of NTA Television College JOS. Forms can be obtained from all marketing offices in NTA State Capital Stations, zonal centers, Training Directorate of the NTA Headquarters Abuja, and the Office of the Academic Secretary of the NTA Television College. Applicants are required to possess 5 credits in GCE, SSCE in relevant areas of study, including English and mathematics, in not more than 2 sittings. All completed forms attached with photocopies of credentials must be submitted on or before the 13th of August 2018 to the stations where the forms were obtained. For further inquiries, please contact the Office of the Academic Secretary on these numbers. Announcer, Registrar.
And to kickstart our conversation this morning on the subject matter, which is managing the nation's exploding population, let's have this background report by Olain Kojo.
Do you know that family planning is a human right?
5 is okay for me, and I'm okay with that 5.
I didn't say anything human right in the issue of family planning.
I look at it as anti-Africa.
Those divergent views set the tone for the 2018 World Population Day with the theme, Family Planning is a Human Right. United Nations statistics show that in developing regions, more than 210 million women still lack safe and effective family planning methods. The reasons range from insufficient information or service support for their partners and communities. This threatens their ability to build a better future for themselves, making women courier to maternity hospital every year. Committed to continued support to uphold the rights of women to plan a family, Chairman National Population Commission Eze Duruhioma says, family planning is central to women's empowerment, reducing poverty and achieving sustainable development.
Family planning shapes the size and quality of our population.
The federal government has also gone on to provide additional extra $1 million to be able to make sure that we have commodities for family planning.
Disabusing the mind of people who engage in traditional methods of family planning. Key players in the family health sector say developed countries can close the global family planning gap with just 20 cents per person every year. 50 years ago, the world declared that parents freely have the rights to determine the number and spacing of their children at a United Nations conference in Tehran. While striving to end all unmet needs for voluntary family planning by 2030, experts are of the opinion that investment in family planning today is investment in the health and well-being of millions of women for generations to come.
All right, thank you very much for that background report. Now, let's introduce the 4 guests that we have this morning to discuss this issue. First, we'd like to welcome Mrs. Margaret Edison. She's Deputy Director, Planning and Population Management Department of the National Population Commission. Mrs. Edison, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone.
All right. Also here with us in the studios is Dr. Eugene Kongnui. Kongnui is Deputy Country Representative of the UNFPA, that is United Nations Fund for Population Activities. Dr. Kongnui, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. And Clement Andua, former North Central Chairman of Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria, and now a member of the Governing Council of Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, and good morning, viewers.
Also with us this morning is a regular face on this show. He is Dr. Emeka Okengu, development economist, farmer, and of course, like I said before, a regular face on Good Morning Nigeria. Emeka, you're welcome.
Farmer makes me feel very good.
All right. Gentlemen and lady,
pleasure.
The United Nations Governing Council program established the World Population Day in 1989, and one would want to know why the council deemed it expedient to establish such a day at the time it did. And I'd like to start with Mr. Kongnui, who is, of course, the UNFPA rep here in the country.
Yeah, I would like to remind all of us that 50 years ago, the United Nations, in the International Conference on Human Rights, that was in 1968, decided that family planning was a human right, and all countries were there. We have to recall that before then, each and every one of us were not allowed, we are not free to decide freely the number of children we wanted to have and the spacing. There was some form of control. And having reached that agreement in 1968, it is but obvious that we need to celebrate, to commemorate that day that we are finally free to decide for ourselves, for our families, the number and the spacing of our children. And that is the theme of the World Population Day this year.
That's to say, that's half a century after the world, literally, as it were, agreed on family planning as a human right. What are the issues emerging from the recognition of family planning as a human right?
Family planning as a human right, to me, is as simple. I think there are a few people who will say, I would like someone else to tell me how many children I will want to have, or how I will make the spacing. We all agree that we want to make that decision ourselves. That is our right, and that is what we say family planning as a human right. The problem we have is, do we have the information to take that decision? Do we have the means to make that decision? That's where the problem have. But I think most of us, we agree that it is a right that we deserve.
All right, thank you very much. We'll pause you, Dr. Kongnui, and return to you subsequently. Mrs. Margaret Edison, Deputy Director of Planning Population Management Department. From the, of course, the caption that we have on the screen focuses on actually managing Nigeria's population explosion. But let's also have your thoughts on family planning as a human right in the context of our current population size.
Thank you very much. Nigeria has been in the limelight because one of the reasons is the size of its population, both in the current and prospective growth that is coming. And family planning have been acknowledged globally as one of the key steps in managing population. Family planning gives you the right to choose when to have your children and how to space those children. So family planning is very key if we have to manage the growth of our population. If we have to make women to have children when they are prepared to have children. So without family planning, our youth, particularly the young people, we see them having children when they don't want to have children. So when people start having children when they don't want to have children, they cannot space their children, definitely your population will continue to grow and you will not be able to control it. So family planning is key if we have to manage our population, if we have to have a quality population that will nurture the growth and prosperity of this nation.
All right, thank you, madam. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. But for now, let's go to the Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria, represented here by Clement Andua. So giving birth to many children is an integral part of the culture of African people, especially Nigerians. Now, how would, Africans begin all of a sudden to adhere to the preferred solutions with respect to family planning? How possible do you think it is, given, of course, the level of illiteracy on the continent?
Thank you very much for this question. Definitely, a lot of things go with the culture in this country, or African as a lot. But one important thing is that a lot of things that we have been doing during in those days, our forefathers and all this, they are gone by now. Because particularly if you talk of the family plan or the large number of people who are having of children, you should know that, yes, in those days, you don't wear agbada, you tie something other, you carry something, or some even use leaves. But we don't longer use it again. Why? Because we know the implication. You can't tie, if somebody sees you with the leaves, tying leaf, moving along the street, we'll call you a mad person. They will not take you to be a person that has sense. It's the same thing like the family planning. In those days, you see one person with 5 wives, 20 wives, with almost 50 children. But what of the situation now? If they give somebody even 3 children to manage now, you find it very difficult. You pay for the university, you pay for maybe polytechnic, or some of them even at home, primary school. You can't even afford to pay it. In fact, when this problem came in, family planning started in Nigeria in 1978. And the problem came because we knew that this problem is coming to face our country, particularly as we are seeing it now. If you see somebody, sometimes you wake up in the morning, you don't know what to give to the children because you have so many children. Either 4 or 5. This one will tell you, please, Daddy, we have not eaten well yesterday. What will you eat this morning? This one will come, Daddy, I'm going to the school. What will you give to me? But can you manage this situation now? But the only solution is that we have to give everybody rights. You plan your children when you want to have these children, so that you'll be able to manage these children. And in fact, it has reached a stage, some people even don't tell them, they take their awards for family planning because of the situation we have been facing in this country now. And not only in our country, in African countries. Like this issue that we have been faced with all these bandits and all this, it's lack of proper planning. People don't have job, people have nothing to do. If you just give somebody 5 naira or 10 naira, to go and slap somebody now, because he has not seen 5 naira since yesterday, you can't do it.
He will even give double slaps.
Yes, double slap, yes. This is what is happening in this country now. This is what is happening. So definitely we have to plan our country, we have to plan our children, so that we live well.
Now,
like
given the literacy level of Nigerians, or even the people in Africa, how do we get them to understand what you're trying to explain? And that is what the question, that is what one aspect of the question that I put to you.
Yes, that's why we're now on ground, we're mobilizing, we go to the grassroots. Let me tell you the truth. Even somebody who has never been to school, if you go and talk to him about or her about the family planning, will accept it. It's a question of mobilization. And that's what we're actually doing now. Yes.
All right. Madam and gentlemen, thanks a lot. Our other guest, who's a regular face on Good Morning Nigeria, Dr. Emeka Angongo, of course, is an economist, a development economist. I was going to ask, before I bring in Dr. Okengo, I was going to ask Dr. Kongwe for us to further explore the theme for this year's celebration, family planning is a human right. Jurists, scholars of jurisprudence will normally raise the question, if you say family planning is a human right, for instance, a number of matters arise. What are the boundaries of this human right? And then, who facilitates the enjoyment of this human right,
Okay.
and then what needs to be done to ensure the enjoyment of this human right. Sorry, 3 loaded questions.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the other
Okay.
guests can also take it.
No, thank you for the questions. Family planning as a human right simply means that we decide freely and voluntarily the number of children that we want and the spacing that we want. This is against population control. The United Nations doesn't advocate population control, which is against human rights. Population control means the state decide how many children you will have for you, which is not correct. You decide for yourself as a family. The husband and wife, you sit together and talk. So the first step is for the husband and wife to talk. Most of the time, people do not talk about this. You simply give birth. You never sit and discuss with your wife how many children you want to have. What spacing do you want to have? That discussion doesn't take place. And that is what the basis of human rights. So why do we do this? Family planning enables women, girls, to go to school. When they go to school, they acquire the skills that enable them to get the employment that they need. They will work, they will provide for their family. This will enable their children to go to school also, and that helps break the cycle of poverty. It also makes them healthier because women who are able to space their children, they recover from the pregnancy before getting the next pregnancy. Those are things that if we all know about, then we make decision, informed decision. United Nations doesn't limit and say, well, you are supposed to have this number of children. No, you can have 10, 20. You can have 1. None. It is your choice, and that is human right. But take that choice when you have the right information and you have the means to do so. If the means that the government should contribute to help provide accessible family planning services for people to have access to when they have the right information.
Now, in the context of the question Kinsley put to you, you say one can have 10, 20, 1 or none, as the case may be. Yes. Then the entire idea may have been defeated if one has that human right to go ahead and have as many as he wants.
Okay, let me tell you that 27% of Nigerian women of reproductive age, that is about 12 million, who want to use family planning method are not using it. For one reason or the other. Either the services are not available or something they don't have the information where to access the services or something is blocking them. By just making those services available and giving people the right information, we will go a long way. The first thing is give the people the information. Sometimes young girls, people say, well, they are not yet married. They are not supposed to have the information. We need to start giving them information as early as possible. When they get married, they need the information. And then the services are available. By just doing that, we will go a very long way.
All right, Dr. Kongo, thanks. Now, Emeka Okongo, Dr. Emeka Okongo, before we explore the economics of all of this, let's still talk about the right concept with regard to family planning. From one of the points that Dr. Kongo said, again responding to my colleague Kirian's amplification of my earlier question, what are we looking at here? Is this a human right at large, in which case you have a broad range of choices, often not caring, for instance, as to the end result, that is the consequences, bearing in mind what also Mr. Clement Anduwa has just said. What are we looking at here?
Thank you very much. Can we be able to dissect this a little so that we can bring out the issues here? Because when you're talking about family planning, we are mixing it all up. We are mixing rights and birth control, and this is where I think the controversy comes. And in mixing the rights and birth control, then we are just having a one pattern that fits all. We have not taken into consideration our culture, our ethics, our value systems. In the case of Nigeria, for instance, in the northern part of the country, there's what they call the Gado system. Maybe my brother will throw some more light on it. And that Gado system is usually you know, predicated on how many children a woman has. That's how much you get as inheritance. So it is a very major trigger to children, to women wanting to have more children. Two, you're not talking about a family sitting together and deciding on how many children that they want to have. Nobody ever decides on how many, nobody ever plans to have children. Let's be real, okay? The moment you're a married man, part of your duties as a man or your wife's duties as a woman is to care for you emotionally and otherwise. And it is in that process that children come. And this is why everything that happens thereafter is attributed to God. You know, it becomes a blessing. So our pleasures and our inputs and our wifely or husbandly duties is now attributed to the celestial, which is where people now are saying everything is a gift of God. I think it's important that we please separate what it is we're facing with here. Are we talking about birth control vis-a-vis the socio-economic realities that my brother had talked about? Are we talking about a right, you know, that everybody now says you can have 20 children if you have, however? Then the however becomes where the issues are. However what? Okay, however, you must be able to cater for them. How? With what? More so when you have a system that has no social structure, social support, data of any kind. I'm very excited and happy that national population is here. Probably we might also, now that sitting down here, help government to ask, what have you been able to do to assist the national population? What kind of data do they have? What kind of instruments, you know, what kind of facilities is open to them? So it is one thing to say that United Nations 50 years ago, you know, decided that everybody can have as many children as they want. Please, can I ask a question? All those countries in the United Nations that are the so-called developed countries, how come they didn't start having more children? How come they now also started developing national policies on birth control that is tied to what you might be able to call your social services? How come that when we came back to Nigeria to do our own or in Africa, we just said, okay, you know what, now it's a right for you to have as many children, as many wives, as whatever it is, but however. And then nobody's been able to put a program to the however. I think that's what the issue is truly for me.
Dr. Kengo, thanks a lot. Let's bring in now Mrs. Margaret Edison. What are your thoughts on this matter right on the table?
Thank you very much. I'll take it from where my friend stopped. United Nations did not say people should have children as they want. That's why you have that word, the responsibly. When you are doing something responsibly, you bring into context a lot of things. When a woman goes through school and finishes secondary school and go to university and complete it, she will be ripe to become a wife and a mother. But when a young girl at the age of 10, 9, 15 starts having children or is married to somebody and start having children, that is one of the problems we are facing in Nigeria. And no United Nations have asked us, and I don't think there are laws or regulations or obligations that ask that we women should start having children early at that stage. And the moment you can put the women through school, that's why when that proclamation was made in 1968, in 1994, we had the International Conference on Population and Development in Cairo, where the issue of population was well shaped. And they added that caveat. If you check, in 1968, they didn't add the caveat of information. They didn't have the caveat of education. They didn't have the caveat of means to achieve that right. It was in 1994 Cairo meeting that that caveat was added to that proclamation, that for them to realize that right or to exercise that right, they must have full information to the wide range of reproductive choices. They must be educated. When a woman is educated, she's empowered to make choices that will be good for her and her generation to come. When she has the means to be able to access, to use the information you have given her and explore the education she has given, then she will be able to become a contributor to your economy, to your system. So the proclamation does not say we should have children any way we like. It's telling us that when a woman pays her children, when she has children every 2 years, every 3 years, there's no how she will have more than 4 in her lifetime. So we need to empower our women to have the right information, to have access to the wide range of reproductive choices. They must also have the means. When you look at Nigeria, you look at the poverty level, especially in the rural area and the sub-rural area. We have a high level of poverty. That was why in 2011, the government then made access to family planning free. So when you go to any public facility in Nigeria today, you have access to family planning free, to make choices, to space your children, to decide when you will have your children. So
I'm not to carry on. Thanks, Mrs. Edison. But let's bring in again Mr. Clement Anduwa, who's of the Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria. Looking at the calendar of events, if you like, 50 years ago, 1960, of course, the country was in the middle of a civil war. The 1994 Cairo conference, which drew all kinds of reactions around the world, particularly also from Africa, and where we are today. We can also factor in the Babangida administration's policy, the administrative policy of saying 4 children per family. That came in 1988, I believe. What exactly has Nigeria benefited from family planning as a human right? If in the course of the years we have seen our population grow today to 198 million, according to the chairman of the NPC, on the basis of a projection, with all kinds of issues that we're having with regard to unemployment, with regard to all kinds of planning difficulties for a population that ordinarily, some would argue, should be an economic asset, but in some respects now, it's a major handicap.
Thank you very much for this question. If you listen to Madam very well, you see, in anything we are doing, particularly with us in Nigeria, when the government did not give attention to such a thing, and you leave maybe individual, because this family planning exercise in this country is being sent by the donors, agencies, and they send these things for government to come also to assist. And to tell you the truth, today, if you go to most of the states, you hardly find family planning office, because it's been, the money that we hire these offices is being sent by the donors. We want government to come in, just like government coming in other policies. Because if government don't come in to support a situation, you find it very difficult that people will accept it. Because the government is very much aware how much are they pumping into family planning in this country. They don't. If you go to some states, if you even ask people, even you go to the Ministry of Health, now she said that family planning exercise now, most of the commodity is free. It's no question of free alone, but government should come in terms of mobilization, like the National Orientation, Ministry of Information should come in to give publicity, the important. Because people take this family planning as maybe they are denying people to have children. It's not. And that's why we are having problem today in terms of population growth. If government have come in earlier to let people know the implication of having so many children, particularly with men, people go and marry, maybe they say you have only 2 children. You go and marry 4 wives or 2 wives, 2 children, multiply them. It's not like that. How do you go about these children? And that's why we're having the problem of population today. Manage what you have. In fact, if you have 3 rooms, and you have 3 rooms in your house, and you are the only person living there, can you manage these 3 rooms? Will you sleep in all these 3 rooms? You can't. Definitely, that's how we're having the issue of population. We are calling the various government, from the local government, state, and federal, to put in assistance, financial support, to assist the family planning issue, so that we reduce this population growth. And this is one of the important things that we are calling the government.
All right. Dr. Okengu actually raised a fundamental issue here, which is not unconnected to the issue of culture of the people. And of course, Mrs. Edison also noted that the UN resolution on this matter, did not actually allow people or give it an open check, so to speak, for anybody to have as many children as he or she wants. Now, the cultural aspect of it by Dr. Okengu still reflects the fact that as we speak, there are some educated men. They have 4 wives, 2 wives, as the case may be. Now, empowering the women, as Mr. Edison said, for them to now understand the concept of family planning, perhaps has not really gotten down to the, to the hinterland where we have a greater population of Nigerians. Now the culture, a man that was born and as the only son in my community where I come from would like to have like as many children as possible so that his lineage does not close. It is the culture, right? And how do you erase that? How do you now begin to ask somebody to begin to conceptualize the idea of that you should have 4? And now, if you have 4 and they're all females in our culture, there's this choice of course, of male children. And the man continues. Before you know it, to have 7 or 10, children in the course. I've had those people who have 11 children from one woman. Now, I'd like
that's a soccer team.
I'd like Dr. Kongu to come in here.
Okay. Just to clarify again, the United Nations doesn't give a cap. Say 4 children. There's no cap. It says, get the information. Certainly, if you have the right information, you're well educated and you know why you are taking the decision, you won't go beyond a certain number. You will be based on your means. You are taking an informed decision. So that goes to the right where we say planning by the family and not for the family.
Take that again, please.
Planning by the family and not for the family. Nobody is planning for you, but you plan for yourself. But you need to have the right information, because if you don't have the information, the education of why you are making some choices, you wouldn't make the right choice. That's the first thing. And then you need to have the means, because even if you have the information and education to make your decisions, you may want to make a decision, but you don't have the means to make that decision. So that two combined. So other countries, I will take us back to the Asian tigers. They are the big Asian countries, the Republic of Korea, Taiwan, Singapore. These are countries that some years back realized the importance of family planning. But they succeeded, and I believe Nigeria will. They didn't give a cap, unlike China. China gave a cap of number of children. They didn't put a cap and say, have this number limit. What they did simply is to make sure that family planning services were available everywhere and free. That will reduce the unmet need. One of the transformative results of UNFPA, our strategic plan, is to make sure that zero unmet need for family planning by 2030. So we don't want any woman who wants to have family planning is not having for one reason or the other, whether it is culture or anything, if he wants to have. So they make sure that family planning services were available everywhere, the Asian tigers. They make sure that education was also of quality and accessible. People were educated. They had the skills, and they put in place policies that promote the private sector. And that made them emerge. They call them emerging countries now. That's what helped them emerge from poverty. And they learn from developed countries. Developed countries pass through the same state, the so-called developed countries. What happened at that time was that during the Industrial Revolution, it happened that many people were working, and the number of children also reduced because they were going to work and working, and then the birth rate reduced. They had to work. And when that happened, what happened? The working population became larger than the dependent. And they could work, save money, and cater for less people. And so the savings enable the per capita income to rise. And that is what is called demographic dividend, where there are more people working and less dependent. And that's what family planning leads to, demographic dividend. And so in Nigeria, the government launched the demographic dividend roadmap last year. And the hope is that at one point, the population structure will change, where there will be more people at the working age, that is from 15 and above, and then less dependent, who are the young children who are not working. And so these people will work and cater for them. It happens at the national level, but also at the family level. If there are more people working than those dependent, we actually emerge from poverty. That's what we're talking about.
All right, Dr. Okongui and the other guests, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, oh Gerula. Change begins with you and me. Oh, change begins with me. Oh, change begins with me. Oh, change begins with
All right, you're welcome back. And it's still Good Morning Nigeria, and we are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's bring in now Dr. Emeka Okengwu. Dr. Emeka Okengwu, Dr. Okongui, before we went on that short break, was talking about the demographic dividend that Nigeria, democratic dividend roadmap that the country has launched. But here we are. The ERGP, that's the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, recognizes that Nigeria's exponential population growth rate, it's one that the country has to watch. How, from your perspective, can we therefore reconcile the exponential growth in our population and then the striving to also ensure that there is economic growth, inclusive growth, as well as a reap of a demographic dividend?
I think there are three key elements that we must bring to the table. The first key element is, what is your national development policy, plan, and program? The ERGP is at best a plan or a policy. Until you're able to bring the program component to it, you can't make it actionable. So you must be able to now develop what you call your plan, program of action. But there are things you need as inputs for you to be able to have that plan. The first and the most critical is data. If you do not have data, you can't do any planning. So if you put the EGRP, which is a good policy, well thought out, and then you begin to now interface it with what you call tangibles, you see them begin to fall apart. Because the first will be How many lawyers would you be producing? How many doctors would you be needing against the hospitals? How many primary schools would you be building? How many teachers do you need to employ? What are their qualifications? Is there any document that interrogates and answers these questions? That's very critical. 2, you must also look at the cultural elements. I'm an Igbo man, and I want to tell my own story. My first daughter, my first child, is a girl, and then thereafter, my wife started having challenges, and my wife is not Igbo. And I said, I didn't marry this girl to kill her. So no more kids, and I was very contented with my daughter as my only child. But I didn't know what pressures, that my wife's friends were going to be loading on her to say, are you sure you know what you're doing? An Igbo man telling you he's satisfied with their daughter, you better wake up, girl. It's possible that this man has, wives or something outside.
Well, he's playing a way.
Yes, but my family gave all that support, and 14 years after, my son came. 14. Between my first daughter and my first son is 14 years. And it was actually during the christening that a lot of, the people who were coming to say, you can't marry, we didn't know this guy, okay, because he's educated. I said, no, it is not because of educated. It is because I understand and appreciate that the first thing that I want is this girl who I married as my companion. The children that have come as blessings. So what's key is also, you must also take into consideration the cultural perspective to this. The Igbo man would not be an Igbo man if he doesn't have a son. So you're going to marry an Igbo man as a woman, and you are giving 11 girls who are all Harvard grade 8. He's not interested, because his mindset is that the only way I live after I die is that I have a son. Like I mentioned, in the North too, they also have an inheritance system that is tied to children. So it is one thing for you to be able to even have what you call your demographic value, like my brother has said. But if you don't juxtapose it to what you call your socio-economic realities, you're going to be singing to the Marines. In the Asian tigers that he mentioned, the first thing they did was to build an economy that was based on information. Okay, or build an economic program that was based on information. And this information, everybody was able to see that if we don't do A, B, C, what's the first? What is our nutritional plan for our country? Do we have any? Everybody says you must have X amount of nutrition in your system. Who is now supporting the farmers to be able to make certain that we get it? We are celebrating that we have become self-sufficient in rice, like the last time we came to speak about here. Do we have a market share in that rice? That we're producing 300 million metric tons or 1 billion metric tons, has it made rice available to the common person as against your price of 18,000 or 18, which is your minimum wage? Now, what's my point, sir? If, as Nigerians who want to handle population explosion, we also need to look at the problems of urban-rural drift. That you come into Abuja and you see Abuja population growing does not mean that women are giving birth more in Abuja than they are given in the other places. It simply means that people are leaving their locations and coming in here. So you must also look at the trajectory that's also now promoting this urban. Instead of talking about population growth in Nigeria, I would have wanted us to have shifted to this urban implosion.
That's a subject for another day.
Okay, because that's what it is. Okay, we are losing more than we are producing, I can assure you. But to stay focused on what it is you've asked, sir, it is very, very, very important that as a country, we begin to say it is not about policy. Policies are ideas and thoughts, okay? It is about programs and actions, and then timelines to be able to define and promote this. How are we able to get Igwe Omadi, get the Oba of Benin, get the Sultan of Sokoto, not to just come on television and speak to people who don't even have televisions to listen to him, but to be able to now become the super guides and champions, okay? To now say, okay, fine, I made a mistake in my own time. I am not going to make the same mistake in your own time. I think it is important that as much as our religion allows us to marry as many women as possible. My brother, anybody who says to you, you are going to talk a woman into not having children, nobody plans children. what happens is that you have a convivial time with your wife, and out of your postcoital relationship, a pregnancy occurs. Are you going to tell her to abort it?
No.
Okay? Are you going to tell her to do family planning when probably she has 5 girls and her mate in the house has 5 boys? We have to be real. So I think the focus for us as a country will be to be able to develop the mechanisms that can allow people to interrogate, what will happen in the next 10 years if we don't begin to do the right things now. If we had done that 10 years ago, my brother, where we are today, look at the Amajiri syndrome. I was working with an agency when the chief executive of that agency had gone to a governor to say, please, don't let your people start wearing hairments. And this governor says, no, in my culture, except you're going to make hairments that will fit our caps. A man's dressing is not complete except he's wearing a cap. So if you don't have a hairment that also takes the cap, I think you better reconsider this policy. So these are critical things that you must be able to develop as your national ideology to be able to create what you can call this common ground or this common value that can begin to now probably build on whatever it is that we're talking about.
Both Dr. Okengo and my colleague Kieran, I mean, you're from the southeastern part of the country. I just wanted to pull this on the table very briefly before we go to the other guest. Law is often also regarded as an instrument for social change. You've talked about the role of social and cultural factors in managing our population. I'm wondering, say for instance in the Southeast, where women were often disinherited upon the demise of their parents, we have had legal decisions in this regard granting women rights of inheritance. Now, isn't this likely in the long run going to impact positively on the attitude towards having female children only?
No, I'll tell you why I say no. Because you see, the values and norms and cultures of a place. If you give me a minute, I'll tell a story. I and Kirian, there's something that has been with Igbo people. Most of us have become born again, have become very educated. It's called the Osu syndrome. Okay? If I were to tell Kirian I'm an Osu and I stretched out my hand to greet him, he would look and he would hesitate because it's something that is inborn in him. Okay? So what I think we need to do is just not the laws. Okay? It is all about sitting down with people to be able to say to them, this is what this is going to cost you. And what did that cost Igbo land? When the white people came and wanted people to take away, and this is historical, do you know what they did? They went to the Osu families, picked their children and gave to the white men because they didn't know if the kids were going to come back. Those were the people that came back as professors. Those are the people that came back as doctors. And even as they came back, the society still didn't accept them. He is here to confirm it. Still didn't accept them even with all the whole education. So what am I trying to say? It is for us to be able to appreciate how deep, how entrenched this is. And not look at it and say that, okay, you just wake up in the morning and then you pass a law and you say, well, banned Osu. Yeah? You pass another law and you say, Oga, plan your family. Then you pass another law. You see, there's one part of our bodies, especially that of men, that is not under any control. It doesn't have education. With your PhD, it messes you up at the moment it should. And that is the part that creates children. So until we're able to develop a mental program that begins to now drive into the hearts of man. Oga, if you are earning 10,000 now and you have 3 children, chances are that those 3 children are going to end up as shoe shiners or mechanics or something. It has to be clearly defined and pursued so that it becomes a mental, and then you can start playing it as jingles on air. At 100,000 with 10 children, you are certainly, except God helps you, going to be bringing up 10 poor, frustrated people as your generation going forward. If we don't begin to have that,
As a matter of fact, to add to what Dr. Kengo has said, culture really plays a great role where we come from, irrespective of your level of education. There are things you just can't wish out. The possibility of erasing our culture and imbibe, that of the West is difficult. In any case, education has also assisted in enabling people to now reason, come to reason to say, look, what is a possibility, or what should happen given the trend of events and developments, both economically, socially, and politically. That should also affect that. Dr. King has actually spoken much, but I was going to ask him one question concerning the budgeting in this country, because I believe that the budgeting process should take cognizance of the fact that, cognizance of the population of a nation that is being budgeted for. How many people are you budgeting for? Right, and if it makes sense, have you ever given it a thought, Dr. King? And again, in the historical budgeting system of this country, do they consider population? Just very briefly. Let's go to that.
Sorry, I'm very sorry. It's not even the budgeting that's the problem. It's that you don't have what you call, or you don't approach what you call your mid-term expenditure framework, which is a 3-year planning system. You see, the annual budget system runs on 2 broad lines: recurrent, where everything is spent; capital, where nothing happens. So doesn't capture, statistics. And if you ask Madam from National Population Commission, how did you people get around this figure we're abandoning now? They are very safe to say, oh, it's assumed. On what basis? Is it on scoping studies? Okay. Now, people are saying 2.56% population growth in Nigeria. Based on what? Is it based on the nutrition we're taking? Is it based on what? So how can you plan? What we'll do is that, remember that we had said, oh, we're not going to be doing zero-based demand-driven budgets. Have you seen that happen in the past 3 years? It's not able to happen, because if you throw that in, that is when you now begin to see the very obvious gaps. So we are safe doing the envelope system. So the budgeting thing doesn't capture it.
All right, Dr. Kengo, thank you very much. Mrs. Margaret Edison, let's come back to you. One of the other guests, has already talked about the fact that when you go to some states, you are unlikely to find provision for family access, as it were, to family planning services. Tell us something. What has been the experience with regard to your interaction with the subnational governments on the issue of proper and effective population management in the country?
Thank you very much. The National Population Commission plays the role of advocacy, drawing the attention of government to issues of population and development. And that was why former chairman, Chief S.D. Makama, was one of the key drivers that draw the attention of government to why women should have access to family planning free. And that was why the government at that time agreed to fund the provision of family planning commodities for the first time in Nigeria. That was in 2011, after the London Summit, the first London Summit on family planning. And the government at that time gave $3 million per annum, which was increased last year during the second family planning meeting in London. And that was when all the public facilities, public hospitals, down to the primary healthcare centers, were mandated to ensure that family planning commodities are provided to women that need them at all times. So as we are here, all the government facilities have family planning services and counseling for women that need them. And there was something that was launched last year by...
Those services are up and running? When you say all government, you mean federal?
Government facilities, public hospitals.
That's both clinics. Federal and state?
Yes, to the local government.
Sorry, let's pause you there. Mr. Clement Underwood, what do you know about this?
You see, it is good to say that government is doing everything, particularly that the services are there. You see, the government cannot do things alone. We know we have government schools, but we have private schools. If you go to, we have government school all over. And if you go to some government school, you will even regret to send your child there. The government should not emphasize on government alone. That's why most of these donor agencies, and like the family, like the PPFN, you see, we are doing a lot. Since we came to this country, that's why we have been crying. We're asking government, don't do it with the government alone. Allow other private sector to assist. And you have an effectiveness of these services. Because if you go to some of the government clinics, as she's saying, you will not even get any family planning services there. Sometimes they come to us. Most of them, they come to us to ask for commodities. And we know some that we work hand in hand with the Federal Ministry of Health. But if you go to local government and some states, you don't get these services. They don't even know whether we are even existing if you go to them. So definitely you should also educate the government. They should also assist other private districts, particularly the PPFN. We are doing a lot over this.
Mr. Ndoa, Parent Food Federation of Nigeria has been operational for decades now.
Yes.
And we want to share with you to the extent, which the organization has permeated the society. Well, you just showed us that what Mrs. Edison said could not be attested to, with respect to the fact that they are not operating in as many as government establishments as she pointed out. Yes. Now, if Parenthood Federation has been there for over the years, what have you been able to do?
Just as I've told you, these services have been sent by the donor agencies. They are the one paying salary for workers there, and we are volunteers. The governing council, we are volunteers to assist, to give publicity and all that. If government have come in fully to assist, these services, you will not even be talking of government clinics alone. Let me give you an example of my stand from Nasarawa State. We don't have an office in Nasarawa State. We have been battling since 1998, and Nasarawa was created in 1996, for government to assist and give us an office to operate. I was a local government chairman. Do you know that the services was almost trying to go out of Nasarawa State? I have to remove my salary and rent an accommodation for the family planning PPFN to allow the services to be in the state. I bought furniture and all this. And as I'm saying, you can even send your press me. You have NT in Nasarawa to go and find out whether I'm saying the truth or not. That's why we're saying that government alone cannot do it. We have private university, we have private secondary school, we have private let government not depend on the government. You know, most of the thing, why is it the government is giving up? Not NEPA is giving up to private Government have been there, but NEPA has not been working. Isn't it? So it's important that they should also educate government to come and assist us. This is donor agencies. We have people in the National Assembly. How many of them have come to that assist?
Are your people in Nasarawa actually responding to family planning?
Yes, they are responding. They are responding.
And Mrs. Edison, how would you respond to the points articulated by Mr. Andwa with regard to greater synergy, call for greater synergy between the government and, say, the CSO, for instance, the Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria?
Thank you very much. In all situations, government cannot achieve what it wants alone. That's why, like the commemoration of the World Population Day, we don't do it alone. We do it in partnership with the CSOs, the NGOs, the donors, the UNFPA there with us, and all other partners that are interested in the quality of the population of Nigeria. So in every country that have made progress, they always partner with other segments of interest groups, like the PPFM. They are one of our key partners in achieving the content of the ICPD. They are also partners in ensuring that the quality of Nigerian population is improved. That's why they are also partner in rolling out the population policy, which we just completed, and it's before Mr. President for signature. So we cannot achieve it alone, as he said, but government is doing its best.
Well, I'm just wondering, still with you very briefly, how do you explain, to Nigerians who are concerned, for instance, about exploding population, that we're still suffering from this dependence on foreign aid to manage our family planning?
Well, the explanation I will have to the people of Nigeria is that when we started experiencing the rapid increase, we didn't take notice of it, or we took notice of it and we didn't take it serious. Because I know at a certain time we had plenty of money in Nigeria, we had plenty of opportunity, and probably that blinded our eyes to look inward, to see that it was time for us to look at our population and start advising ourselves and start being determined. Like the UNFPA rep said, talked about the Asian tigers, they were determined. They saw the problem coming and they stood up on time. But we did not stand up on time. Some people raise argument, like you talked about the 1988 policy that was spearheaded by late Professor Ransom Kuti at that time, and our president at that, our head of state, President Babangida. They didn't like it, and that was why that policy was not implemented, because they were against that equation of having 4 children.
Who were the day?
No, well,
no, who were the day? I mean, that's not carry on. Who were the day? That's if you're
yeah, there were people that did not like it.
Yes,
yeah, like he said about cultural issues. There were people that brought in some cultural issues to it. You can't constrain me. My culture says, like he said, if you have all females, I must have male children. There were so many competing cultural and social issues that affected the implementation of that policy. So Nigerians have to...
Mrs. Edison, I think you have said it all. You know, you have indeed said it all. You know, because when that came up, you know, there was a stiff opposition to that. Many Nigerians, many families, they said no to that, both educated and uneducated.
And today we are seeing the consequences 30 years later.
That's what I'm saying.
You are looking at the number of students or candidates who are going to write the jump, who are going to write WAEC. You are looking at the number of graduates you are producing each year. You are looking at the population of unemployed persons. You are looking at the population.
Dr.
These are the consequences.
I think Dr. Kengu has put it right. Yeah. There's a poor planning is all part of this, right? Because, of course, in Nigeria, for instance... Poor planning arising
also from social-cultural resistance.
Exactly. Nigeria has the resources, for instance, to tackle whatever issues that it is, you know, concerning our population. Right now, let's get to Dr. Eugene Kongune. You know, we are rounding off the program gradually, and as OMFA country deputy rep, you know, what will you be advising the Nigerian government to do with respect to, of course, the explosion that we're already in at the moment, population-wise?
Yeah, and the Nigerian government has done much in the past 10 years, but more remains to be done. As she rightly said, before, family planning wasn't free. It wasn't available in all health facilities. After the London summit, the government put money in family planning, and donors. I would like to mention the United Kingdom, Canada, USAID, and Bill and Melinda Gates, together with UNFPA, they supported the government to put money in a pool basket for family planning commodities. That said, there are still a lot of gaps in family planning. We need to ensure that family planning services are available everywhere. There is move to have it available everywhere, but the private sector is not yet considered in this pool of this, which we need to consider than CSOs. Even in government facilities, we do a survey of government facilities every year, and we find stockouts, to tell you, but they have dropped. The past year, the first it was done, it was around 60%, it has dropped to 20%. The stock out where you find no commodities in the health facility is dropping. It is improving. And I can say Nigeria, family planning is picking up, but we need to do more and go beyond the federal level. At the federal level, the minister is very committed. I can tell you that the minister is in Seattle. Professor Isaac Adewola is in Seattle today for family planning, 2020, meeting there. So the government at federal level is very, very committed, but at state level, the government need also to take it up and put money into family planning. I can say there is one state I won't mention, where there are 300 births every day. 300 births every day meant that we need 10 schools every day to put, if there are 30 children per class, 10 classrooms every day for this. How can you build 10 classrooms every day? It is a big planning problem. And at state level, the government need to be aware of this. It is a big challenge. The population cannot be growing faster than the economic growth, and you expect us to emerge from poverty.
All right, Dr. Kongwe, thank you very much. Closing thoughts from Mr. Clement Anduwa. Mr. Clement Anduwa, how can the country rally key influencers to apprise them to the necessity of focusing on family planning, considering some of the untoward consequences of Nigeria's population explosion?
Yes, just as Madam said earlier, government cannot do everything alone. Definitely they should come and assist the NGOs so that we can work hand in hand. If you look in those days, public schools are being given funds by the government. I'm sure some...
I'm sorry, Mr. Anduwa, I'm sorry to interject. Yes. When I mean by key influencers, we're looking at the traditional institutions. Okay. We're looking at religious groups. Yes. We're looking at... You said you were a council chairman. Yes. Why was it difficult, for instance, for Argon in your time or even now to say, look, this is an issue that we should focus on? Those are the kind of persons I'm looking at, yes.
Yeah, like the state government down to the local government, definitely. As the minister is doing in the federal level. Definitely, the state governors, they have to do a lot down to the local government because each tier of government has its own allocation. And if they don't come in to assist, definitely whatever the minister is doing here, it will not go down to assist. Because if you go to the state and the governor is not doing anything, the local government is not doing anything, definitely we're not. But during our time, just as I said, because some of us, we have the interest, we know the value, we know the importance. We took it upon ourselves. And it's not even all the local government. The local government that they know the importance of the population growth that is coming up to assist. Then we were able to sit down with some of the religious leaders to tell you the implication.
Sir, don't really bother yourself much on this because the local government chairman you're talking about, the traditional leaders are talking about, are all corporates. You know, these are people that some of them have 10 children or more, as the case may be. So how can they begin to advise someone else on how to control births? As a matter of fact, we have come to the end of this conversation for today. We'd like to appreciate all of you for sharing your time with us. And first of all, let's appreciate the Deputy Director of Planning, Population Management Department, National Population Commission, and the person of Mrs. Margaret Edison. Thank you, Madam, for coming.
Thank you for giving us opportunity to speak to our people this morning.
Exactly. And again, the Deputy Country Rep, ONFPA, Dr. Eugene Kongwe. Did I get that correctly?
You get it very right.
Okay, thank you so much for coming. And Clement Anduwa, former North Central Chairman of Planned Parenthood Federation of Nigeria, and now a member of the Governing Council of that establishment. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much. We also want to thank the federal government for partnering with us.
Exactly. You have lots of experience on this because, of course, you've been the local government chairman, as you told us. Thank you. And again, Dr. Emeka Okengu, a regular guest on this show. Thank you for your thoughts again on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
It's always a privilege. Thank you very much.
All right, so that does it for our conversation. Let's go over now to our sports desk, of course.